Matthew chapter number 24, verse number 12. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. 2020, specifically during the summertime, where we were literally having people burn down buildings, take over city blocks, violence, murder. There were 35 people who lost their lives during those summer riots. Washington, Seattle, Detroit, Chicago, the leaders, the mayors, the representatives of those cities who were charged with protecting the citizens of those cities and the property of those cities literally said, don't do nothing. That is a dangerous precedent to set. You must not allow that to go without consequence. Welcome, family, to Studio B. I am your host, Pastor MDH. Thank you so very much for joining us here on the set again. We greatly appreciate your viewership and your fellowship here on the podcast. Remember, we need you to help and support. So wherever you're watching us from, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, like, follow, subscribe. But here's what I really need you to do. I need you to get all into them comment sections. All right, I need you to get all into them comment sections and tell me what you're thinking. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. I can handle it. I got thick skin. So let's talk about these issues that we are bringing up on the podcast here at Studio B. Because today, man, I was just looking through all my notes, and it's a lot that is continually going on in our nation. And I'm trying to disseminate this information in a way that it's not like drinking out of a fire hose. But I want to kind of start off with something right now that is widely been underreported. With all of the stuff that we have going on right now, I'm not sure. I know that many of Americans are not aware about what's happening right now in the Black Sea. For the first time in the last 12 years, the United States is officially on heightened alert. Happened on last Thursday, because Russia announced on Thursday that it is deploying over 140 combat ships, supply ships, and 50 aircraft, along with 1,000 pieces of military equipment and 10,000 military servicemen. And they are headed to the Black Sea. Why is that a problem? It's a big problem. It is a huge problem. For the first time in the last 12 years, America has been militarily put on heightened alert, meaning that there are forces that we now have to contend with in what could potentially very easily become a national conflict with Russia. And if you've been watching the news over the last 2 or 3 months, you've been seeing Vladimir Putin from Russia and President Joe Biden of the States go back and forth. And last week, President Joe Biden issued a very stern warning to Vladimir Putin and told him as such that if you even think about going into Ukraine, you will be met with strict response. Now, let me tell you a couple of issues that I have with this. One, America has not been in an active war, not talking about Iraq, not talking about Afghanistan, an active war for the last 7 years, excuse me. But my problem with this particular going back and forth with Russia is America seems hell-bent to protect the borders of Ukraine, but will not secure its own borders in the southern border. So we're willing to go to war and strategize troops, and troops are being strategized right now in the United States of America to respond to what Putin did on last Thursday. Now, the official Russian response to all of this movement that is close to the Black Sea is that they're doing military campaigns and drills. That's the official response of the Kremlin. However, remember, if you do remember, 6 years ago, Vladimir Putin tried to invade Ukraine before. So this is nothing new to Vladimir Putin, but we put severe economic sanctions on him, and we crushed his energy dependence. Okay. And because he was starved with energy, he got in line to what we told him to do, and he pulled out of Ukraine. This happened 6-7 years ago. But Ukraine is a very strategic place for Vladimir Putin. Now, I want you to hear this. Now, Ukraine is not some dust kickers in Afghanistan. Russia is not some dirt kicker in Afghanistan. It is a superpower with nuclear weapons. And nuclear weapons have been talked about within the last 2 weeks of this escalating conflict. Now, right now, they are at the Baltic Sea, which borders the Black Sea. Why is that important? Because the Black Sea borders Europe. Why is that important? Because of our NATO partners. Okay, it's not just about this particular nation or that particular nation. It is about a partnership in NATO, which would cause the blocks to start to fall. So this is some very serious stuff that is going on. This is some very, very serious stuff that militarily we have been placed on heightened alert because Russia is strategically placing their supply ships, combat ships, aircraft, military pieces of equipment, and 10,000 military servicemen right now to border the Black Sea, which is right there on the border of Ukraine, which is right there on the border of Europe, which is where everything is popping off. This is a very, very serious issue. And I believe many of us are not aware of what is going on because we have enjoyed a time of peace where our enemies have not wanted to mess with us. But listen, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you 4. I'm going to give you 4 scriptures to back this up, because I've said for a long time, we in Christendom, we talk about the last days a lot, but at some point in time, it's got to become the last days. I mean, it's almost like a religious colloquialism in church right now when you're talking to Christians and they'll just kind of throw against the wall, "Oh, we living in the last days." Not really understanding what they're talking about or even generally what they mean. But at some point in time, we've got to enter the last days. And I believe that the last days are quickly coming up on us. The prophecies of old are falling in place in record numbers. Anybody that you talk to that understands eschatology and end times will be able to walk you through some of these ancient prophecies that you see happening right now in the States, in our nation, in our world. And Russia, by the way, hear this, Russia and China play a big part in the last days, a huge part in the last days. Russia and China. In scripture, they call them Gog and Magog. They play a huge part in the last days. And now we're starting to see all of these things start to happen. They also sent 6 amphibious assault ships to the port of the Baltic and Northern fleets on January the 15th. A day before the report, 6 Russian amphibious warfare vessels from the Northern and Baltic fleets passed through the English Channel. That just happened on January the 15th. So this is some really, really major things that is going on in our nation that we are just unaware of, because at one point in time, now I'm not going to go off on a diatribe. I promise you I won't. But the days of unbiased reporting are gone. The days of journalists uncovering information and getting in front of a camera or getting in front of their typewriter and putting out unbiased information, those days are long gone. Those days are long gone. We no longer have non-biased journalism. Journalism is biased from left to right to blue to red. And it's unfortunate because now you have to disseminate through all of this mess in order to really find the truth. It makes the task laborious, but it is still possible. However, it just takes a little bit more time to do. It's sad that I have to turn on a TV station and I got to question the anchor or the news reporter on the other side and ask what's their bent, what's their bias, because everybody has one. And this particular story is going widely unchecked because there's a lot of different things that are happening all at the same time. Now, this just happened last week, and I believe, as I'm keeping my eye on this, that this is going to escalate very, very quickly. Now, I pray before God. I bow before God. I bow before God, and I pray that it doesn't escalate to the big N word and the use of the N word. I don't think we're at a point in time right now to where that would be an option that is on the table. However, you have two nations that are capable of using the nuclear weapon. And if one uses it, then it would prompt a response for the other to in turn use it. Now, I'm not talking hyperbole. I pray in Jesus' name, God is my Father, that we never get to this particular place. But everybody, I want to say this very, very candidly. Very, very candidly. The world is a big place, and the world has a lot of different moving parts. When America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. America is still a superpower that has great influence on the rest of the world. So what we do here, other nations around the world mirror. America is not a moral nation by far, no, but it is still an economic superpower. America can make nations' currency go up or go down by what happens within our shores. So America holds a great place in the standing of the world. However, with that responsibility, the weight of that responsibility, we have to make sure that we're not just doing things for Americans, but for the world at large, because it does have a ripple effect on the rest of the world. I'll get to that later, and I'll give you some CIA from CIA.gov about some stuff that they say, which is quite alarming about what's going on here in our nation. I want to read to you Matthew chapter number 24, verse number 12. Write this down. Here's what it says. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. Lawlessness. Right here on this particular set in 2020, specifically during the summertime of 2020, I said some things that put me on the wrong side of a lot of people. And this was right during the time of the riots and the social protest, where we were literally having people burn down buildings, take over city blocks, violence, murder. There were 35 people who lost their lives during those summer riots. The leaders of these particular cities, Washington, Seattle, Detroit, Chicago, the leaders, the mayors, the representatives of those cities who were charged with protecting the citizens of those cities and the property of those cities literally said, don't do nothing. I sat on this particular stage, on this particular set, and said that is a dangerous precedent to set. You must not allow that to go without consequence, because what it's going to do is gather steam. And now what you're seeing, according to the FBI and the CIA and the CDC, from September of 2020 to September of 2021, murder in the United States of America is up by 30%. We are right now living in a time to where it is the most violent it has been in America in the last 100 years. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what Matthew chapter 24, verse number 12 says. When lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. And the word lawlessness, let me tell you what it means. It is a Greek word, ammonia. And here's what it means. It means specifically to the idea of deliberately disobeying a specific standard. In this particular case, the law. And so when you start to see this stuff start to happen, you need to take notice, because now what we have done, unfortunately, is we have emboldened criminals who understand, and I'm gonna give you a couple things here in just a second, who understand they're not scared of the consequences. They're not scared of being detained. They're not scared of any of this stuff. Because what we have done is lowered the hedge so much that prison time, being caught and being arrested does not put the fear in people as it once did. It just doesn't. And I told you something, well, the men know this. I went to jail one time, and that was when I was 13 years old. I got caught stealing out of Target when I was 13 years old. Let me tell you something. When I heard those doors close, I'm 48 years old now. That was 35 years ago. I have never been in trouble with the law since. I ain't never been in another jail cell, because that particular moment in that cell, in that isolated cell all by myself, hearing those doors close was enough for me to say, I don't want to do this. And I've never been in trouble since. But now what we have done, unfortunately, is embolden criminals because they understand there's not going to be any consequence for their actions. Romans chapter 1, verse 29, here's what it says. They will fill with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of murder, envy, strife, deceit, and maliciousness. I want you to hear what he's saying in the book of Romans chapter number 1. That these people are full of murder, strife, deceit, and maliciousness. The love of God has grown cold. Why is this such a big deal? Because in 2020, you start hearing all of these things about bond reform. Bond reform caught a whole lot of steam at the end of 2020. I have some issues with it. I got some real big issues with it. Devonne Marsh of Detroit, Michigan, poured gasoline on his pregnant wife, who was 6 months pregnant with twins, set her on fire, was arrested while his girlfriend was burning. She's in critical condition right now. Devonne Marsh, a judge, after hearing that this man set his girlfriend on fire, who was 6 months pregnant with twins, set the bond at $5,000. Excuse me, set the bond at $50,000. Devonne Marsh had to post a 10% bond, meaning that he got out of jail for $5,000. Now, I want you to hear the details of this case. Devonne Marsh set his girlfriend on fire, poured gasoline on her. This pregnant woman with twins inside of her stomach. He was arrested as she was burning. He goes before a judge, and a judge of law, criminal law, gives Devonne Marsh a $50,000 bond. He posted the 10%, which is $5,000, and walked out of the jail in Wayne County, Michigan on Friday. Walked out. after setting his girlfriend on fire. Now, his girlfriend, who was 6.5 months pregnant with twins, burned over 60% of her body. Marsh was released on bond with several conditions, including being prohibited from doing drugs or going back to the scene of a crime. When he was released from jail in Wayne County, Marsh has a hold for charges in another county, meaning that he was not supposed to be walking the streets at the time. Marsh's girlfriend, 26 years old, remains hospitalized in critical condition, and it's unclear whether or not the babies will survive. She is reportedly too afraid to come forward and report the crime, but a tip led authorities to the scene where she is currently cooperating with the investigation. The Detroit Police Commander Michael McGinnis said, "How could you do this to another human being?" He told reporters, "This is just incredibly traumatic injuries. And this is something that I just cannot imagine another person doing to another person." Now, Marsh has a long criminal history with past charges including drugs, guns, and assault. In Macomb County in Michigan, jail report shows that he was incarcerated there on Friday, January the 1st. Detroit police directed the request from Fox News and Wayne County prosecutor's office, but they did not immediately respond for the request. Now, again, I take you back to Matthew chapter 24, verse number 12. When lawlessness increases, the love of many will grow cold. This man set his 6.5-month pregnant girlfriend with twins on fire, doused her with gasoline, and set her on fire. And a judge who's going to college, who's going to law school, who is sitting on a presiding bench, hears this evidence and still gives this man, who was not supposed to be out in the first place, apparently didn't even look at his past criminal history, gives him a $50,000 bond, to which he posts 10% of it and walks out on Friday. You can't make this stuff up. And what is all of this coming from? The Bible is clear. The love of many are now growing cold. And people don't care about people anymore. And people can literally do the most heinous things to you and go home and sleep like a baby. Go on about their lives as though nothing ever happened. But this is a problem. That the Bible clearly has warned us about. And you see this going on right now in our nation. I guess it was 2 months ago. As a matter of fact, it was in November, because it was right during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial that I did a couple of posts on Adolph Thornton, a young man by the name of Young Dolph, out of Memphis, Tennessee, that was gunned down in his hometown. And Young Dolph, who was patronizing a black business, who was a young black man who was doing great things to get his life right, had made some bad decisions in his past, but was righting those wrongs and was doing well. He was a father of 3. He was a husband. He was out patronizing a black business, and 2 gunmen came up on him, shot him 6 times, killed him at the scene. And the 2 men went free for almost 2.5, 3 months. Well, I'm happy to report that the 2 offenders that are charged in the murder of Adolph Thornton have been caught and convicted. Indicted. But here's why I bring them up. In the same way with Devonne Marsh, you have two people that were out on the streets that should have never been out on the streets. These are repeat violent felony offenders. Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith were indicted by the Shelby County Grand Jury yesterday. This was last week. Justin Johnson, and I want you to listen to this man's rap sheet. July of 2015, at the age of 17, at the tender age of 17, he was charged with aggravated rape and aggravated robbery at gunpoint. The victim in that case was a woman at the Econo Lodge. He was found delinquent when he was placed in custody of the Memphis Police Department. So at 17 years old, you should have been in school. Apparently, obviously he was not. He got charged and indicted and convicted of aggravated rape and robbery. At 17. He was placed into the Department of Children's Services until his 19th birthday. The Memphis District Attorney Office filed that his request be denied to be free on his 19th birthday. That request in that case was denied, and he was placed as a violent juvenile sex offender in registry in January of 2017. January 31st, to be specific, he shot 3 people at the Billy Hardwick bowling alley. So he gets out after being convicted of an aggravated rape and aggravated robbery and goes to a bowling alley and shoots 3 people. Now watch this. That was in February of 2017. He pled guilty to 5 years concurrent for the shooting in the Billy Hardwood case. And in November of 2017, he asked a criminal court judge to be released from that sentence, and the judge granted that request. He served 9 months of a 5-year prison sentence. And he gets his lawyer to go and ask the judge if he can be released. And a judge in the criminal court system, this brother has already been convicted of rape and aggravated robbery. He's already been convicted of it. Then he goes and shoots 5 people. You give him 5 years concurrent, meaning that he's got to serve all 5 years. In my opinion, that's not enough, but it is what it is. Then, in November of 2017, after serving only 9 months, he asked the criminal court judge to be released from that sentence, and the judge granted that request. You think that's bad? After serving only 9 months of a 5-year sentence, in May of 2018, he was arrested with a handgun and illegal drugs. The next day, he posted a $7,500 bond. A week later, he was arrested for violating the conditions of his probation and had a new gun and a new drug case. 3 days later, he posted a $15,000 bond on that violation of probation. This is the same young man that pulled the trigger, that was one of 2 trigger men that pulled the trigger on Adolph Thornton. This man from the age of 17 who was indicted and convicted on aggravated rape, aggravated robbery. He goes and tells the court I don't want to be in jail that long. And the judge says, you know what? You're right. That was in November 2017. In May of 2018, he was arrested with a handgun and illegal drugs. The next day, he posted a $7,500 bond. A week later, he was arrested again for violating the conditions of his probation on a new gun and new drug case. And 3 days after that, he posts $15,000 bond. Now, if you're taking the numbers here, within 2 weeks, the Memphis Department of Justice got $22,000 from one person. This is no longer about holding people accountable for their actions. Why would a judge grant any type of bond to a person like this, who has a history of violent crime? Because it's all about the money. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. People's lives are in the rear view. It's all about the money. They got 22. He posted a $7,500 bond, and then he posts within a week later a $15,000 bond. That's $22,000. That's just one person. And what I've told you, and I'm going to continually say it, right now, and I'm going to get to a couple things here just in a second, but right now we are facing a huge shortage of police. Police are taking early retirement. Police academies are not being filled. Nobody wants to take the job of a police officer anymore, which means the protections that we once had are dwindling down in record numbers. And it is because what we have done is made the police out to be the bad guy. We've taken the actions of a few police, a Derek Chauvin here. And what we've done with the case of Derek Chauvin is we've broad stroked the entire police department and everybody that wears a badge and say, you're just as bad as that guy. And what we have done is we have undermined the force and what they are able to do to help protect people's lives. Now, I have been all for police reform in the sense in that we have to be more transparent in some of our police practices. I've been all for that. But when we undermine a complete force and put everybody in the same basket, that does no good to mankind, because those police, guess who you gonna call at 3 o'clock in the morning when somebody's knocking at your door and you don't know who it is? You're gonna call 911, and you're gonna call 911 so that a police with a gun on his side comes to your door and comes to your aid. But that's not what's happening now. Police don't want to be police. And this story will hit home for me in Houston, because we just had a police officer in Houston that was shot, and I'll get to that in just a second. But I know a few cops, a few policemen that have taken early retirement. And here's what they say. They say, Pastor Holman, it's just not worth it. We're the bad guys now. So why would I need to put my life on the line for that? So many are just checking out and taking early retirement, which are leaving big gaps in these police departments. In New York City last week, a rookie New York City officer is dead and another officer is in critical condition after they were shot responding to a domestic violence call in Harlem on Friday night. 3 officers responded to the scene of the call, West 135th Street, around 6:30, where a mother and her adult son, Leshawn McNeil, you'll hear about this dude in just a little bit, were fighting on the first floor apartment, according to police. So first of all, you got a son fighting his mama. That should let some bells go off. As these officers come to the scene, Officer Jason Rivera, 22 years old, a rookie, entered the hallway and was struck first. Police officials with knowledge of the investigation said that Rivera was married and died from his injuries. His partner, Officer Wilbert Mora, 27, tried to duck into the kitchen during the shooting, but was struck. Moore was listed in critical condition as of Saturday morning. You ready? The suspect is identified as 47-year-old Leshawn McNeil with a long rap sheet of possession of drugs, possession of a firearm, violent crimes. He was in possession of a .45 caliber that was reported stolen in the city of Baltimore in 2017. He was struck and is in critical condition as well. A career criminal. His rap sheet is as long as my arm. I'm tempted to say fell through the cracks, but he didn't fall through the cracks. With a long rap sheet. A 22-year-old rookie cop, Jason Rivera, is dead, and Officer Wilbert Moore, 27, is fighting for his life right now. All because of somebody that should have never been out of jail was out of jail. And again, it's not about criminal justice. It's about the money. This is the current reoccurring, the reoccurring theme in a lot of violent cases around this world and around this nation specifically. Closer to home, a Texas deputy constable was brutally murdered during a traffic stop for no apparent reason. Charles Galloway, 47, a 12-year veteran and field training officer. Harris County Precinct 5 Constable Ted Heap said on Sunday morning, Galloway was making a traffic stop on a newer model white Toyota Avalon around 2:24 a.m., which happened right here on the southwest side of Houston, Texas. Houston Police Chief Troy Finner said witnesses described the suspect as an Hispanic male and said that he got out of the vehicle and immediately started firing upon the officer, striking the deputy multiple times, and then drove off. Finner told reporters that the witnesses told police that an assault-style weapon was used in the shooting. The police chief added, "This is senseless and it makes no sense whatsoever." So he's pulled over at 2:24 a.m. and immediately steps out of the car and starts shooting, striking Deputy Charles Galloway multiple times, leading to his death. As I tape this podcast today, as I've been following this particular story, they still haven't found him as of yet, but they've identified who he is. Let me ask you a question. What would make a man immediately, upon seeing flashing lights in his rearview mirror, get out of the car and start firing at the officer? I would be willing, and I'll do a follow-up podcast or at least a little update on this story as I get more information. I would be willing to put quite a substantial amount of money on this, that this person, this Hispanic male, is a career criminal. This person, you'll find, once his name is released, I think his name was released yesterday, as a matter of fact, you're going to find that this person was a career criminal who's been in and out of the prison system. And I would even dare to venture that he has several violent offenses on his record. Let me show you. And I want to make sure that I hone this in. I am not hopeless by no stretch of the imagination. By no stretch. I'm not hopeless, even though things look hopeless. I'm not. I believe that God is a just God, and that the justice that is lacking on this side will be dispensed on the other. I believe that. I believe that there will be justice for that officer and his family. There will be justice for those 2 babies that were in the womb of that woman that was 6.5 months pregnant that got set on fire. I believe that there will be justice for that, if not on this side, on that great getting up day. I believe God is just. But what I am desperately trying to tell us is that we have to wake up. See, while you are so concerned about foolishness, the stuff that matters is going unchecked. It's going unchecked. And we're in a place right now to where we haven't been in quite some time. I want to read you this article from the CDC, which mirrors FBI.gov. The United States has just recorded its highest increase in rates of homicide in modern history, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Provisional data of the CDC's National Center of Health Statistics recently released early on Wednesday suggests that the homicide rate in the United States rose by 30%. It is the highest increase recorded in modern history. And it confirms, though, through public health data, a rise in homicides so far have been identified only through crime statistics. The previous largest increase of U.S. homicide rate was around 18%, and that was recorded from 2000 to 2001. We have the highest rate of homicide in the last 100 years. Robert Anderson, chief of mortality statistics of the NCHS, said. The only larger increase since we have been recording this data occurred in 1904 and 1905, and that increase was most likely, or at least partly, a result of better reporting, Anderson told CNN. The new data shows that homicide rates increased from about 6 homicides per 100,000 people to 7.8 of 100,000 people in 2020. So we're looking at a 30% rise in homicide rates in just the last year. In just the last year. There's a lot of stuff going on in our nation right now. But everybody, I say this in Jesus' name, and I want to make sure that I say this correctly, because I don't want to misquote the text. But I think it's appropriate that we understand where we are right now as a people group. I hope that we understand that. In Ephesians chapter number 5, there is a very, very poignant scripture. And here's what it says. Wherefore he says, rise, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. He says, wake up. We have to get to a place to where we get back to some sense of normalcy. And I don't know what normal even looks like now in 2022. I don't even have an idea. As I was thinking about that this morning, I don't even have any idea about what normalcy looks like. Like, what in the world does it look like? Normal has not been normal for anybody. Right now, I know you feeling the punch of the economic strain. I know you feeling the punch at the gas pump. I know you're feeling it at the grocery store. I know you're feeling it in all areas of your life. Inflation is the highest that it has been in the last 42 years. Let me say that again. Inflation is the highest it has been in the last 42 years. Just within the last year, not 10 years. not 20 years, gas has gone up an average of more than $1.40. Now, let me help you out here. Because gas prices are a direct result to energy policy. The two go hand in hand. The policy on energy has a direct, a straight line to the gas pump, which is why you see your gas rates going up at $1.40 more per gallon than this time last year. All across the nation, gas is $6.75 in California, a gallon. It's $2.89 here in Houston, as recently as this morning when I put gas in my truck. $2.89. I have a picture here that I pulled up. The gas here that I'm looking at right now was $1.61 per gallon. I know you feel it. I know you feel that extra pump when you're putting gas in your tank. Well, one time you could top it off. Now people are just putting gas in the vehicle. Well, when you start seeing gas prices like that, that is a direct result of energy policy. The policy from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Inflation is up. Milk, bread, eggs, meat. The grocery bill of the average American right now is costing them more. It's costing them on average around $30 more per trip to the grocery store. So what does that mean? It means a whole lot, y'all. Sometimes when I'm looking at this stuff and kind of walking my way through it, the Bible says that David encouraged himself in the Lord. I understand ultimately that my king don't sit in the White House. My king sits up on the throne. But Romans 13 says that government is here for a reason. And we have somebody in the White House right now that has a 31% approval rate. Let me let you know what that means. 69% of Americans don't think he's doing a good job. Let me give you something else. He just passed a year. He's only been in there a year. He has the worst approval rate of the last 13 presidents. But he was hailed as the savior of America. Now your gas is up, your food is up, your electricity is up, everything about your life is up. We're on the verge of possible conflict. What is God doing? What is God doing? Let me leave you with this. I'm going to leave you with some hope. If you want to find out more about the inflation aspect, you need to go to the Department of Labor Statistics and look at their CPI, which will give you more insight about the inflation. So let me leave you with this. Lest I don't leave you hopeless. Let me back up. For the last year, America has experimented with socialism because America's been giving out free money. Just, you get a check. 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 Passing out money all over the place. We've experimented with socialism. We've come to find out that socialism don't work. Now, we knew that going in. We absolutely knew that going in. I believe that this year, we're going to see economic pressure that we haven't seen in some time. I believe, unfortunately, it's got to go lower before it can start to come any higher. And you're going to feel it. Right now, you have 7% less of your income than you did last year. So if you got $100, you got $7 less of that $100 than you did this same time last year. $7 less. So you got $93 as opposed to last year having $99. Okay. You got 7% less of your income, of your dollar. I believe that we're going to get to a place to where economically we're going to start feeling this thing. As we get out of the foolishness of COVID-19 and all of these things that people are still trying to push, even though multiple evidence is coming out to the contrary. We're in Flint, Michigan just last week. They decided to go virtual schooling indefinitely, taking kids out of school indefinitely over COVID-19. In this particular passage, I want to leave you with some hope. Let me leave you with some hope. Because I think you need it. Oh, man, so many things of hope I want to give you. But let me take you to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And here's what it says. Just a couple verses as we come to a close. Chapter number 10 and verse number 13. There is no temptation that is taken to you for such as common to man, but God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted above what you are able, but with the temptation provide a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. As I encouraged the men last night, I'll encourage you as well. I know it looks gloom. However, God is still good. We got to stay faithful. You got to keep your eyes on the prize. You got to drown out the noise so that you can hear what God wants you to hear. I am praying for this nation. I am praying for the people of this nation. I am praying that we would come to our senses, that we will begin to start to think not what other people want us to think, but start thinking independently so that we critically analyze the information and make the right decisions for you and your family. Praying for that. I'm really, really praying for that. And I'm praying that God will do a great and mighty work in and through us. So in these last minutes, I want to take you, give you a couple of things real quick, because I really do need your help in this regard. Let's see here. All right. I need you, if you're on our Studio B YouTube, I need you to like, hit the button to the right, subscribe, and then the bell. You'll be notified every time we go live. Starting in the first Thursday in February, I will be doing live broadcasts. It won't be from this set. It'll actually be from my office at the house. Live broadcasts, and they're only going to be about 15 minutes. We do this one for about an hour and 10. But we want to start chopping that down because I know that a lot of people can devote an hour and a half to every single. So people kind of, they chop it up as they watch it. So we're going to put together some little short clips, real impactful, real short, sweet, straight to the point. That's going to start happening in the first Thursday in February. So be looking out for that. We've also figured out this whole Zoom thing. So I'm going to be bringing you some content and people from all around the world. Every place around the world is going to be here on the set of Studio B. But I need you guys to like, follow, share, comment, man. Get this information out there because the stuff we're talking about right here on Studio B, it is super well researched. It is applicable to your everyday life. And we always bring it back to what does the Bible say? What does God say about what's going on in this world? So everybody, I want to thank you so very much for joining us here on the set of Studio B. Remember, if God be for you, it's more than the entire world against you. It's more than the entire world against you. We love you so very much. We'll see you next week.